Welcome to War Room Impeachment. Welcome back to War Room Impeachment. That long break we had over the course of the afternoon, from this morning show to this afternoon show, Friday, January 17th, the year of our Lord 2020, episode 120. Here of War Room Impeachment on the John Fredericks Radio Network, Salem, Newsmax, America's Voice.news, and across all the podcast platforms. I'm delighted that you are all subscribing out there and telling your friends. It shows, and we're very grateful for it. There's a Reuters article that's just come out, which talks about how war room impeachment is limiting the damage, the constitutional damage, quite frankly, for this president and of presidents to come. Jason Miller and Stephen K. Bannon named in that. They left out someone. Was it Vish? No, it wasn't Vish.
The right through will have your name in there. Our man Steve Holland is a fantastic reporter. I'm sure we'll get that.
Look, if Reuters wants to erase ethnic minorities from their reporting, we're going to have a come to Jesus moment at the Oscars or something about it. Reuters, hashtag Reuters so white.
I do got to tell you one funny thing. So when I was chatting with Steve for the story, I gave him a quote, and he said, Jason, and he's just, if you know Steve Holland, he's very much one of the deans of the White House delegation. He goes, any advice that you give to the president? I kind of laughed and I go, you know what? Just keep doing your thing. I go, in fact, I would continue to light up Adam Schiff just over and over and define him as a political person. Steve starts laughing out loud. I'm like, what's so funny? Did I say something funny? Like, what's going on? And he goes, I just walked out of the Oval Office 5 minutes ago, and literally the last thing that the president does with us, they had the pool in there. The president wanted to make some remarks yesterday. He started going off on Adam Schiff, just pummeling him as being a partisan figure. This is the left on the Democrat. And Steve goes, so it sounds like you guys have already coordinated your messages. I'm like, no, it's just you spend enough time with someone, you're going to start thinking the same way that they do. So funny moment from the conversation.
Did you almost, by the way, just say Steve Reuters?
Yes.
It's like Tim Apple?
Yes.
See, it's another. You spend enough time with him, you're picking up his habits.
Well, yeah, exactly. So
I want to get into the legal team announcement from this morning, Jason, to bring the show back from media coverage of War Room to the actual War Room. We have been going on about this and talking about the need for a sophisticated legal response in the Senate trial that begins in earnest in a very, very short amount of time, a couple of days away now from opening arguments, I believe on Tuesday, right? Who's in the legal team? Do we have Jim Jordan? Do we have Ratcliffe? Do we have Gates? Do we have any of the House fire breathers to match the political fire breathers that Nancy Pelosi is sending over there in the form of Jerry Nadler?
No, we do not, and I'm guessing that by not yet having them, we probably won't. I saw it dangled out there that there's a chance one or two of the House guys could get added. At this point, I don't think that's going to happen. I think that the White House is going to go with the will of the senators to not have the House guys on board here. So we knew before that White House General Counsel Pat Cipollone would be leading the operation. Outside attorney Jay Sekulow would be part of the mix. Then Mike Purpura and also Pat Philbin, also from the White House General Counsel's office. We already knew they were going to be part of the team. And then the surprise this morning, actually, while we were on the show, and we had Reince Priebus, the chairman, in here, news came out that also going to be adding to the mix were Alan Dershowitz, Ken Starr, Robert Ray. So some very big names that were coming through. And then later on added Jane Raskin, who really was, so Marty and Jane Raskin, Miami-based attorneys. I know them a little bit, not super well, but they were kind of the power behind the scenes during the Mueller Russia hoax. They were really the ones who were doing the, when I say the real legal work, the blocking, the tackling, the briefs, the figuring out how to fight back against the deep state that was trying to take out President Trump in that. So you had Mayor Giuliani was saying doing a lot of the TV work, Jay Sekulow doing a lot of the TV. It was really Marty and Jane who were the powerhouses, and people that I've talked to both inside the White House and outside said they really did a good job. Now I didn't see Marty's name in here, but I mean they're I got to think Marty's involved, but Jane's a real dynamo, and it's good that she's part of the mix. Also Pam Bondi, who had been announced former Attorney General, two-term Attorney General from the state of Florida. She's now termed out. She was named back in November about being part of this defense team, or kind of the media team, along with Tony Sayegh. Also an accomplished lawyer, so she's going to be in-house with this. But then this afternoon, things started getting a little bit interesting.
Complicated. It's complicated.
And so Alan Dershowitz went essentially on a media tour. And I just happened to be, I left the studio and I was driving home and I'm flipping through my presets on what's going on there on Sirius XM. And I see on 124, I think that's the POTUS channel or whatever 124 is on Sirius, I see Alan Dershowitz. I'm like, thought bubble, this could be interesting. So I go and hit the preset save button, and he's on giving this interview, and it really sounded like the host. I didn't get the host name at that time. I thought it was maybe an Alan Nathan, but I need to double check. Seemed to be doing a double take, like kind of surprised they actually got Dershowitz on the line and just start asking a bunch of questions. Then Dershowitz immediately starts going into, well, I'm not really part of the team. I'm just going to be coming in for an hour, laying out the case about how this impeachment, the push on this is setting a bad precedent. The articles here aren't very good. I'm not going to be, or actually, it didn't say articles aren't going to be good, but the whole case for this, the basis for it is essentially bunk. Even if Hillary Clinton, who I voted for, had been served up with these articles, I would be out here saying the same thing, but doing this weird backpedal thing. And then started seeing all these different Google alerts and seeing these Twitter notifications pop up, where basically Dershowitz did this whole media tour this afternoon to make sure everyone knew he's not part of the legal team. He's just coming in for an hour next week, go and lay out the case of why this is junk. He's not getting into the specific arguments, and just making the broader case. It was just really weird. Like it was, and I don't know how much of this is, look, let's just be blunt here. Dershowitz has gotten his, what kicked in over the past, few months over some being tied in with some different characters. How much of this was him trying to step back so there wouldn't be collateral blowback on the White House? Or how much was this Dershowitz essentially wanting to have his cake too? Did he want the big media tour and to get the limelight and to, have his, his OJ moment of being in front of the Senate and the whole world with cameras, but without the blowback of being part of a Trump team, basically so he doesn't get uninvited from any more Martha's Vineyard wine and cheese parties.
Well, good. That frankly, that as CNN's Caitlin Collins said this morning when she was announcing this, Alan Dershowitz being added to the team, she said, look, a lot of people have been talking about him, but worried that he might bring some baggage, some PR baggage, some distraction to the whole thing, because he has his own personal problems going on right now. So I think probably good that he's not considered part of the core team, and that maybe he's only there, as you say, as somebody who voted for Hillary Clinton, but actually is a constitutional lawyer and understands the gravity behind the sham of impeachment. Fine. That works for me. I think that works for the president. What I'm concerned about, Jason, I'm very keen to hear your thoughts on this. And just so the audience knows, Jason and I sat here for about 30 minutes before the show. We didn't actually talk about any of this stuff between ourselves in advance. We do our own independent research. And one of the reasons that I actually don't start those conversations, even if I'm just sort of tapping away bored at my computer, the reason I don't start those conversations with Jason, I want everything on the show to be authentic. I want the real conversations to be had. I don't want it to be construed or ever veering into the tactic of sort of getting on here and having our talking points that we flesh out beforehand, right? So we haven't talked about this. I'm gonna say this to you. My thoughts. The president announcing a very serious and talented legal team, while the other side have their political, their partisan team. Doesn't that make it look like the president is on trial here, and that this is like an O.J. Simpson kind of trial? And, will the president be taking the stand to the wider country that, isn't following the nitty-gritty, the hyper detail, doesn't even know what the impeachment process is, right? But will be turning on their televisions in the evening, maybe having the radio on in the background, maybe catching little clips on Instagram or TikTok or whatever it is. Does this make it seem like a lot more serious in terms of a case than the case actually is? I'm not saying impeachment isn't serious, but the case itself, the two articles, they're pretty insignificant in the grand scheme of things. They don't amount to much. They're an admission that there was no blackmail or bribery or extortion or anything like that. Why have a full-on legal defense? Why not go with the political defense? Why not have those house fire breathers in there? Does this give the president's opponents and the independents out there a reason to go, see, you must think you're guilty if you're appointing all these highfalutin lawyers.
So great setup there, and I've been someone who's been hammering over and over that we need to have some of the fire breathers, some of the hardcore guys, the Mark Meadows and Matt Gaetz and Jim Jordan and Lee Zeldin and Debbie Lesko and the Doug Collins, kind of the hardcore folks there. And in fact, I think I tweeted out after the Democratic announcement, we'll take R7 and go and beat Year 7 or something to that effect. Here's what I think they looked at. Number one, there was obviously the pressure from the Senate. I don't think we can sit here and being very sincere and say that some of this wasn't impacted or caused by the Republican senators saying they didn't want the House members coming over. So let's just be very on the level about that. But when this team was announced, I really liked it, and I'll tell you why. I think the concern that many of us had, I'm going to speak for myself here, I'll let you chime in on your own, Raheem, was that just quite frankly, Pat Cipollone is very much known as a by-the-numbers legal guy, but doesn't have a big media profile. Jay Sekulow does have more of a media profile, but there was some question about is he the right person to go toe-to-toe with an Adam Schiff or an Hakeem Jeffries? And do we need more firepower? Do we need more star power? Do we need people like, oh, snap, the President Trump just rolled out a baller status team here. These are some people to really be reckoned with. So you can take that on from a couple of different approaches. You can say, okay, you just brought a whole bunch of players to the basketball court that are all 6'5" and tough and ready to go and rumble. Yep. We're going to roll out a whole team full of 7-footers that are going to go and dunk on you. And just basically, we're going to go with bigger, tougher, and better. I think what they did here, and this is, I got to give Pat Cipollone a lot of credit here, is he flipped the script and said, you know what, rather than saying we have bigger guns than you do, and we're going to go and just blast you out of the water, they flipped it and they're like, you know what, the Democrats have nominated all political hacks essentially to come in on their side. And so Adam Schiff, Jerry Nadler, these folks are all defined as being very partisan actors. They're not viewed as being at all impartial or independent. I mean, they're partisan Democrats. It flips the script and says, we're going to have these big legal guns so we look like the adults, and now the Democrats who are coming over are basically just the little pesky kids who really don't know what they're doing, coming over here with their political attacks. And again, like some of these guys, I mean, Dershowitz will lay out his case or whatever, but he's not going to be around for the actual back and forth. I mean, Ken Starr, former special counsel who oversaw the whole Clinton impeachment. Then you have Robert Ray, who did Whitewater. Then you go through, obviously, in addition to Pat and with Jay, but then knowing that Jane Raskin is someone behind the scenes, very good. Pam Bondi is very smart. I've heard that Philbin and Purpura are very good. I don't know them, haven't worked with them directly. But in particular, having Starr and Ray, two superpowers in the legal circles, I think really makes the Democrat effort look small. And so I like the contrast. Just like in sports, a lot of these things are games of matchups, and it makes it look like they're the ones who aren't serious. And I think, look, we can do the political attacks from the outside of continuing to hammer the Dems, but I like this move for that reason. I think it does give us some star power and some pop going in there, which I was very much nervous about before.
Okay, all right. That's a very conciliatory way of looking at this. After we've sat here for weeks saying we need some House fire breathers in there, I still hold on hope that there may be one, that there may be a weekend surprise for us. We'll see. And to those in any position of power listening to this show, and we know there are many, please consider our position on this for the very reasons we laid out. There is now obviously going to be a delineation between the two different teams, and I think Jason makes a very good case for saying, look, hey, these are serious people, and this is a serious occasion, and therefore you can send your liberal hacks, to quote who was it in there with Manu Raju?
Oh, Martha McSally.
Martha McSally, thank you.
The killer.
On the tip of my tongue.
I like Martha now.
Yeah, I like Martha now. But yeah, okay, fine. Well, look, I think it's important to understand this team so far. And one more thing before we move on to the next topic, which is obviously going to be Eminem's new album.
Yes. Quick thing. Although he's going after, is it gun control? Is that what he's?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's M lost me a little while ago. But here's one other thing too. I'd thought in my head, a week or two back, like, could there be these other bigger legal names out there that might come on board? To be on the level with you, I didn't think that the White House would be able to go and get a Ken Starr or to get a Robert Ray type. Robert Ray had not come to mind, but Ken Starr did. So Ken Starr in particular, he's a Fox News commentator, or he was up until today. When you leave those, a lot of times they take you back, but a lot of times they don't. And having a Fox News contributorship, that's the big deal. That's like the holy grail if you're a right of center political pundit to go and have that. I mean, it's a very nice place to be. It's a great profile. It's a great network. They treat you like family there. It's a very nice place to be. I was surprised that Ken Starr gave that up to go and do this. Robert Ray, someone who's very accomplished in his career, done a lot. Does he need the brain damage right now? Because, I mean, let's just be honest. If you go and sign up for a team like this, you're going to get death threats. You're going to get people yelling at you. You're going to be sitting down at a nice dinner with your family someday, whether it's immediately or in the future, and some idiot's going to start heckling you. Probably wearing like a "Move On," T-shirt or something like that, or "I break for Pelosi," something like that. But it's you give up a lot, and so I think it's really a testament to Pat Cipollone for being able to get these people and the president that he got some bigger names that, quite frankly, I was surprised the White House was able to get.
The president welcomed the Louisiana State University American football team. I have to say, American football team. It's not real football. It's hand egg.
Do you know who our listeners are?
Americans.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to rile people. I'm being the foil here. Let me be the heel.
Okay.
Right? This is how you get listeners.
I thought that's what we had the libs for.
I'll be another one.
Okay.
So the LSU Tigers were in the East Room today, and the president made the following comment. And apologies to John Fredericks in advance for the fine he's going to get from this, but I am quoting the president of the United States. He says he's talking about the Resolute desk, I think. He says it's been there a long time, a lot of presidents, some good, some not so good. You've got a good one now, even though they're trying to impeach the son of a bitch. It was great. It was a great moment that I had to throw in there. Don't worry, we're not going to talk about Eminem's new album. We'll save that for Steve and his weekend shows, right?
Yes. For the hip hop, the special Saturday morning hip hop segment.
For him and Boris Epstein to go through on the Saturday show. We do. We also have Stephen K. Bannon joining us in the next part of the show, and he'll weigh in on this on the legal team. Also, I wanted to, if we're done here for now on that, and we've got a couple of minutes left on this side of things, I do want to read you something, Jason. And again, you and I haven't really talked about this in advance of this show. I want to read you the opening gambit of the new, very, very long form editorial board interview with Joe Biden done by the New York Times. Now, we remember we did this with Bernie Sanders last week, and Bernie was sort of rambling incoherently throughout the interview. Joe Biden, not that much different, although I won't claim to have gone through the whole thing with a fine-tooth comb yet. There are some standout points, though, especially how Kathleen Kingsbury, the editorial board leader, starts off the discussion with Joe Biden. She says this, and I mean, this is really the very beginning of the interview. This is not 5 minutes in or 10 minutes in. The very first question, right, is, you fought corruption in Ukraine. There is no indication that you or your son did anything wrong or were part of any corruption in Ukraine. That's how she opens the question. The question is then, but you haven't really answered the question of whether you think it's proper for the son of a sitting president of the United States to serve on the board of a foreign company that's being investigated for corruption. But that whole preamble, you fought corruption in Ukraine. There is no indication that you or your son did anything wrong or were part of any corruption in Ukraine. Do they afford that same deference to President Trump? Do they afford that same deference to anybody on the political right, Jason?
No, and I'm wondering if Kathleen Kingsbury, if in a previous life she was maybe a t-ball coach, where her job was to get a bunch of 5-year-olds together and say, okay, this is the ball, I'm going to put it on the tee, and you know what, you can just swing away until you hit it. And don't worry if you don't hit it the first time, I'm just going to make it as easy for you as possible.
What a great analogy, because actually Joe Biden didn't actually manage to hit it. If you look at his responses, Jason, you look like you were jumping.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I mean, this is the reason why I gave up baseball after one season and just stuck with football and basketball when I was
American
growing up.
football.
Yeah, exactly, because the hitting the ball part of hitting the ball was always a challenge for me. But no, but I mean, Biden, I mean, go ahead and go through his answer. I mean, it struggles. I mean, it's terrible.
Yeah, so remember, she starts with, you fought corruption in Ukraine. There's no indication that you or your son did anything wrong or were part of any corruption in Ukraine. But please answer the question about what your son was doing on this board. Okay, he starts his answer. Look, I fought corruption when I was in Ukraine. Repeating her assertion from the question. Then he goes on, no one ever suggested I've done anything differently, including all of the president's men and women who testify. And I didn't realize he was on the board. He's talking about Hunter. Where's Hunter? Until he had been on the board for a while. You all did right, I think, I can't remember what month it was, but you indicated, and I think it was 15, that he shouldn't be on the board. Then the New York Times has this little pullout and it clarifies the Times editorial board actually did write in 2015 that it's not a board, Burisma, the board upon which Hunter Biden sat, is not a board he should be sitting on. Then Joe Biden goes on, right? Now remember, Kathleen Kingsbury, the New York Times editorial board, and Joe Biden have started this question by saying there is no indication that you or your son did anything wrong. Yep. There is no indication that you or your son did anything wrong. So let's go to Joe Biden's answer. He starts the second part of it. He acknowledged that he thought it was a mistake. And as you point out here, the focus is can't be taken off who in fact violated the Constitution. He then goes on a little thing about Trump and constitutional violation and all this stuff that we've heard before on the whole impeachment saga. Nothing new. He doesn't offer anything new. And then at the end of that paragraph, again, stay with me, he says, he, Hunter, has come forward and said it was a mistake on his part to be on the board. Okay, hold on a minute. She starts by saying you or your son didn't do anything wrong. He then says he acknowledges it was a mistake. Which is it? Is a mistake wrong or not, Jason?
Mistake is wrong.
I think if you type into thesaurus.com, wrong, a synonym would be mistake, no?
Yeah, is there a thesaurus.com?
There is a thesaurus.com.
Wouldn't it just be easier to have like a word.com or spell.com? Anyways.
Are you doing, is that a thesaurus on thesaurus.com?
Yes.
Okay.
But here's to the Biden point. First of all, I just assumed that where this answer was going to go was going to involve Corn Pop. And was Corn Pop the leader of the Jets or the Sharks? What was the gang that Corn Pop had he had like the metal chain and he was threatening to cut up Joe Biden. But then Joe Biden told him he was, stand down, whatever. But it was Joe Biden he's weird.
That's the music. This is going to have to be a cliffhanger.
Yeah, but this is worth reading for the simple fact that I legitimately wonder if Joe Biden is still all there.
Yep, and we will get back into that after the break. At one point in the interview, a noise starts going off, and Joe Biden goes, "What the hell is that?" And Kathleen Kingsbury is forced to go, "You're getting a call," and he goes, "Oh." We'll be back with more War Room Impeachment, episode 120, after this short break.
War Room Impeachment. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back. Friday, January 17th, the year of our Lord 2020. War Room Impeachment, episode 120, broadcasting out of the historic Breitbart Embassy on Capitol Hill. Jason Miller, Raheem Kassam, and we hope Stephen K. Bannon joining us on the line from New York. We were just going through that New York Times interview, the editorial board interview with Joe Biden, and the faux pas in that, and what the hell is that?
Raheem, is that an alarm?
That's our recreation of the moment in the Joe Biden interview with the New York Times board, where a phone starts ringing, and Joe Biden goes, "What the hell is that?" And the editorial board says, well, I think it's I don't know who it was on the editorial board, says, "You're getting a call." He goes, "Oh." They said, "It's your staff." The interview is a very long one, and we're going to be going through it and pulling out the key lines. But the top question that the New York Times editorial board asked Joe Biden began, "You did nothing wrong. Your son did nothing wrong. You were not part of any corruption in Ukraine. But why was Hunter Biden on the Burisma board?" And then Joe Biden goes, he acknowledges it was a mistake. So he did do something wrong. Great, thanks. Good, glad that we cleared that up. On the first part of the show, we dipped into the legal team, and as soon as we have Stephen K. Bannon on the line, we'll get his thoughts on that as well. Jason, take us through the next couple of days leading into this week, because we're getting some breaking news. We're getting actually a lot of breaking news this afternoon for a sleepy Friday here on Capitol Hill. And one of the latest ones from CNN's Manu Raju, that liberal hack. He says expect at least one closed session on Tuesday. So not the senators can't debate kind of thing that we've heard from. In a closed session, which they have to get to via a vote of 51 senators, by the way. in a closed session, the House managers, the defense team, and everyone else has to leave the chamber, and senators do get to then debate amongst themselves. So we won't see it, but we may actually have that on Tuesday as well. I think we have Steve on the line with us. Steve, are you there?
I mean, Jason, what do you think about how this thing's going to roll out? I think there's going to be a lot more fighting and a lot more closed sessions to start this than people think.
Yeah, and Steve, that's one of the things today that I think we know less right now than we did at the beginning of the day in many aspects. So give folks just the super quick overview. House briefs are due at 5 p.m. on Saturday. That's what we expect to be essentially their opening arguments or opening outline. Trump's briefs are due at noon on Monday, and then the House reply is then due at noon on Tuesday. So when these opening arguments, when things get going on Tuesday, what we expect them to get into is what the actual structure of this is going to look like. And again, as Raheem said, needed 51 votes. You go and get this. Last time around, it was 24 hours of talking time for the managers, 16 hours for senators to question them. Everyone's kind of assumed that it's going to look very similar to last time. But now it seems to be that this thing's all over the map because, number one, there are going to be all sorts of amendments and different votes and arguments about what the witnesses are going to look like. That's going to be one. How much time? Now we're seeing what Raheem had heard the other day, that there could be, I think this was Tom Tillis that said this, 2 12-hour periods for each side to go in, or for the managers to go and make their case. And so might they go and try to knock that out all at one time, or over a couple of days here? So but the whole point of these closed door meetings is this is going to turn into some real knockdown, drag out. And I think by having this in a closed setting, Steve, McConnell wants to limit Schumer's ability to turn this into a political circus, try to hurt vulnerable Republicans.
I mean, what do you think? There's going to be a huge outcry even for having closed sessions. I don't know why. You have to ask right up front, why are you having closed sessions? This is supposed to be a trial. You're the jury. Why does the jury get a closed session? I mean, shouldn't you start right off the box and have all of these things out in the public so we can see what the debate is?
Well, exactly. Another thing, too, is, look, Steve, you know this. If there's anything that's closed or anything in private or anything in hiding, President Trump is going to get beaten up for it. They're going to go and make this
right.
they're going to make this a process story. CNN's going to have the chyron. President Trump's team obstructs justice from the public or some nonsense like that, and that's how they're going to go and position it. And so, look, either lean into it and start driving it on your terms. Let's go and let's have dismissal up there. Let's go and start force it, which, by the way, some of the articles today are saying that any package that comes forward will not have a dismissal vote right up front, which I don't like. I think we should have that and make people go and vote on it. So for the simple fact, when we have this, people go to the ballot box in 2020, they can see who wanted to have further drama and further chaos. I'd love to have that vote.
Can you walk through again? Let's just go through the logistics about what gets delivered Saturday, what gets delivered on Monday, what's the response on Tuesday morning, and then what happens Tuesday at the start of the bell.
Yeah, and so the House briefs, which my understanding is this is essentially their opening argument, the case that they're going to be make, the evidence they're going to be presenting.
This is basically Adam Schiff's argument against the president, honed down from the 7,000 pages of testimony and evidence that came in from Lev Parnas and others at the last second.
Yes, and it will be, here are the charts and the graphs and pieces of evidence that they want to go and present. This is where I would expect that we would find out, for example, do they want to have certain videos? Do they want to have certain, what's the evidentiary record that they're going to be introducing? What are their trial exhibits? What do those actually look like? And then from the president's side, their briefs then are due at noon on Monday, so essentially a day and a half, 2 days later. And then the House has the opportunity for a reply that will be due at noon on Tuesday. And then right away, then they're going to go into these essentially setting the stage for what this next couple of week trial, or we think it's only going to be a couple of weeks here, of what this exactly is going to look like. And this is where they're talking about this closed door session. What we have heard, or what I've been told by the offices of 2 different U.S. senators, is that it will most likely be from noon to 6 p.m., 6 days a week until they get this done. And it'll probably run approximately 2 weeks. Don't forget, you have the Iowa caucuses coming up on Monday, February 3rd, and then State of the Union coming up on Tuesday, February 4th. Those are kind of the big markers that are out there. And so will this run over? Will we need to postpone State of the Union? That's to be determined.
You're missing another big marker in amongst all of that, which is the debut, the premiere of the Hillary documentary at the Sundance Film Festival at the end of January as well. Steve, I know you'll be keen to get your seat there at Sundance.
Hey! All I'm saying, it's a 4-hour documentary made with somebody that was there in 2016. She actually teared up, I think, when she first saw it. This is all part of, dare I say, Hillary 2020.
Wow. Hey, I want to get a little bit into because we promised the audience, we teed it up in the last segment, the Steve Bannon response to the legal team announcements from this morning. Steve, any first impressions? We've talked about the firebrands.
I don't know if Annie Carney's story came out yet in the Times, so I did give her a quote. Look, I'd like to have your guys' take on it, but I just felt it's tremendous collection of legal talent, right? And you got a broad spectrum of constitutional lawyers, people who've been attorney generals, people who know how to work the media like Pam Bondi. I mean, it's a very impressive team. However, I do think it feels a little conventional. It feels like Mitch McConnell had a big say in how he wanted this team crafted. It didn't feel Trumpian to me. And it didn't feel like it was going to be unconventional. And I think this has got to be unconventional warfare, not conventional warfare. It's not just getting the 51 votes to acquit. You're playing for much higher table stakes. And I just think this is, it's much more important. I would have loved to have seen a couple of our firebrands. I would love to have seen a couple of lawyers that maybe outside the box thinking, people that could, from the legal team, work the media like the Pam Bondis can. But some fire breathers. And I just don't think we saw that. The House guys seem like they got short shrift. I'm kind of stunned that not even Radcliffe, not one member of the House was included in this. It looked to me like a Mitch McConnell victory, full slam dunk. I mean, I don't know what your guys' take on it, but I was quite, I was let down, very conventional thinking. And then I've just read in the last 2 minutes, I think Dershowitz has already come up and said, he doesn't even know he's on the team. He's not full time. He's not totally committed. So I mean, I don't know what to make of this. I would love to hear your guys' response.
Yeah, so I think and again, Steve, just for you and for the listeners, we knew that Pat Cipollone and Jay Sekulow were going to be on board, and we also knew that Pat Philbin and Mike Purpura, who both work in the General Counsel's office in the White House, were going to be on there. We got the announcement this morning that Alan Dershowitz, Ken Starr, and Robert Ray were all going to be a part of the mix, or some pretty big legal names, as you pointed out. And then later on, we found out that Pam Bondi, who joined the messaging team at the White House there a couple of months back, as well as Jane Raskin, who really did a lot of the journeyman type work during the whole Russia hoax, doing the actual blocking, tackling, the real interaction with the DOJ and the special counsel. She played a very important role in that, along with her husband, Marty, two Miami-based lawyers with very impressive track records. So, Steve, I'm going to tell you where I agree with you, and I'm going to tell you where I think you should be much more optimistic. So, with regard, so my first reaction after having been pushing for the fire breathers, the hardcore guys from the House, I mean, if we're just being brutally honest about this, the reason why we wanted that is because we wanted something Trumpian, we wanted something with star power, we wanted something to where they're bringing their flamethrowers and Adam Schiff and Jerry Nadler, although we can question about how tough Jerry is, but Hakeem Jeffries, who's very good, Val Demings, who really proved herself during the House impeachment process. We're like, you know what? We need bigger, tougher, stronger to go at them. We need to go and just steamroll these folks. That's why we wanted the Matt Gaetz, the Mark Meadows, the Lee Zeldins, Jim Jordans, etc. So we didn't get those. I mean, I think that's pretty clear. Mitch McConnell in the Senate, they won on that. They convinced the White House that they shouldn't go in that direction. I'm going to tell you why I like the approach of where the White House went, because where they went by going against some of the biggest, hardest-hitting legal names, particularly in Ken Starr and in Robert Ray, some real hammers, Steve, as you would describe them, and the matchup of having these real-deal grown-ups, legal scholars, tough guys, and I think both Ken Starr and Robert Ray have good enough public presences and debating skills and personas to where they're better than where we were before. And so we're not going to be stuck in kind of this small thinking, hey, we're just going to be church mice and go along with this. I think we do have some hitters here, but the contrast, Steve, and this is where I'm going to say you should be a little bit more optimistic. I think the Democrats look like a bunch of partisan hacks, especially because President Trump has defined Adam Schiff in such that capacity, where they're going to look purely political. We have folks who actually look like who are smart legally, who are good in the courtroom, who can act like the grown-ups in this to essentially treat the Democrats' arguments like you idiots don't know what you're doing. Would I have liked to have had the flamethrower guys from the House? 100%. That's what. But I do like the contrast and the setup here. If we're not going to get the flamethrower guys from the House, I think this is the next best thing we can do.
Well, we were never, remember, but the grassroots, the Trump base, the war room impeachment, we never argued that they should be everybody. But don't you believe with this team, you could add a Jordan. You could add a Jordan and a Lee Zeldin. You could add a couple of the fibers. One, they know, as Mark Meadows made on this show a week ago, they actually know the details and have lived with the testimony here, having sat through the deposition, sat through all the hearings. Wouldn't you have liked to seen one or two of the fire breathers from the House?
100%, but we got rolled.
Wow.
I mean, I'm just being blunt about
I don't
it.
have to put too fine a point on it. I just want to make sure that, look, there was another release in the press out there today that the president was not particularly happy with how aggressive the legal team had been. Now, you're saying that you think Ken Starr and Robert Ray, look, don't get me wrong. If I'm going into any type of litigation, I would love to have this team, right? From Robert Ray to Pam Bondi to Ken Starr to Alan Dershowitz to Pat Cipollone. This is a group of heavy-hitting, top-flight, white shoe law firm, players, and from constitutional law to tough litigators. So look, I just continue to say this is not. That looks to me like C-SPAN or Court TV, and we're playing to a much broader audience here. And I do think some of the theatrics and fire that the House can bring could be particularly, we don't want to get into the thing of too much solemnity, because I think that's not going to make the case that President Trump needs to have. And I don't think he's going to be happy unless he sees real aggressive people. And in addition, that people that then go on television and say, in the Chiron, say from President Trump's defense team.
No, and Steve, I agree with everything that you're saying. And in particular, the point that Mark Meadows made and you just reiterated, who is it on this team who literally, if they bring up Marie Yovanovitch, can be like, actually, you know what? Go to page 337 of her testimony. Go to the third paragraph. Let's go and pull out this answer because it conflicts with what Lieutenant Colonel Vindman said on page 72 of his. And remember how we got all nervous on that answer and we smashed him? Let's go get the video from that. So we want someone with that, literally that clinical strategic aspect on this team. And again, you don't just want one, you want multiple. And so I would like to see people added that go and talk to it. Might we get one here over the weekend? I don't know. I mean, my concern, Steve, when we get down to the nuances there, and again, maybe the team thinks that for their argument, they just don't need it. If they're getting that much into the weeds on, say, a particular testimony, that they're losing, that they need to keep it much bigger, broader. I don't know. That might be a part of their legal strategy. I wish we had someone in there who knew it inside and out, like Meadows, and I wish we had someone with the pure, raw communication skills, like a Matt Gaetz, like a Jim Jordan, who can go and take it to these guys when we do need to. Like Matt Gaetz had the perfect quote when he was on the show the other day, Steve, when he said that if this thing does turn into a circus, you better have someone on that team knows how to ride an elephant.
Or can be shot out of a cannon.
Yes, and either one. And if you can do both, if you can be shot out of a cannon and ride an elephant,
golden.
Then you're golden. And I think that was Matt Gaetz' official audition pitch.
Well, listen, here's one of the things is that that's why we have the war room. Is that this thing gets dumped on Saturday night? It's the war room to be able to deconstruct it. So by the Sunday morning show, it's one of the reasons we're on 7 days a week. But it seems to me that automatically with the House guys, and hopefully we'll have one of the House members on here to help us with Adam Schiff's opening argument as presented, because President Trump's going to want people have gone through that with a fine-tooth comb. I just think once again that those, Mark Meadows said, hey, there's only a handful of staffs that have done it. It's that corpus, that core group of players. I just think there would have been a tremendous benefit to have that on the president's team, and maybe they try to add that later as we get into this thing.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you, and there's no part of that I disagree with Steve. I guess the only thing that I would just add on here is that I think that as a Trump supporter, you can be energized and excited by adding in some of these bigger legal names. I do think two things can be true at the same time here. Raheem's shaking his head. He disagrees with me.
No, I'm not even shaking my head at that. I have just got some new breaking news in that made me want to slam my head on the desk. House Democrats plan to release more evidence from Lev Parnas tonight. Which means
Are you serious?
Which means that my evening off that I had planned, having just gone through the 400 pages yesterday and the 58 before that, is over. We are due another document dump tonight.
So, but here's
the Friday night dump from Rachel Maddow, who's the new assistant to. Is she on the team though? Is she on the presenting team? By the way, was she added today?
No, but we did make a strong case this morning about adding her as a witness.
If only Reince had played ball with that.
Steve, if you could imagine, if you're here in the room, the look on Reince's face. I was like, Reince, do you want to go on the record here saying we should have Rachel Maddow as a witness? And Reince gave a very Reince reaction. You had to be here, had to see it on video. But
the chairman.
I love the chairman. He's great. Thank you. So I love his insight and his unwillingness to swing at that pitch.
This gets back to a very serious point. Is that they're going to leak them all weekend.
Yep.
I mean, this was why she slow walked. It's so evident, and this thing's become a farce now. That they slow walked this for a reason. Okay, she actually, I think, now lied. She said that she wanted to make sure there was a fair hearing, everything like that. This is so they could get the Lev Parnas stuff in and just drop all the hearsay. And so I'm sure tonight, Raheem, the team's going to be going through a lot of interesting texts, emails, those sorts of things as they continue to dump this stuff and to really try to sway, I think, the jury before the start of the event. I think this is jury tampering.
I knew I should have learned Ukrainian today after not being able to go through the other ones in Ukrainian yesterday. Hey, here's the thing, though, Steve. I think you hit on something really important there, right? She lied, and she has consistently now deceived the American public over why she has slow-walked this process. She has consistently deceived the media, who keep hyping her up, right? But she's deceiving them, lying to them every day, and they seem cool with it. She's lying to the White House. She's lying to the legal teams. Who knows in her own team who she's lying to as well in order to keep this all under wraps, because who knows, one of them might leak something. But the lies upon lies upon lies, isn't this, and I'll come back to what I said this morning, isn't this blatant obstruction of the entire process, right? You're obstructing the White House legal team from being able to do its job with the time it needs to mount the defense, the things that you want them to defend against. Is it enough to drop it on Friday night and say, great, good to hear from you on Tuesday morning? And she's not giving the Senate and all those guys amount of time as well.
So, Jason, what stuns me, to Raheem's point, how did you go through all these weeks of deposition, all those weeks of testimony, the arguing back and forth, to have the historic vote, right before Christmas? I think it was on December, 17th or 18th, this historic vote right before the holidays. And now you have really the bulk of the hearsay evidence. They've had hearsay before, but all this Parnas stuff dropped, the day before, and now 2 days after it was delivered to the Senate. I don't even see how this thing has any. The process of this thing is now totally spun out of control.
No, absolutely. Look, I mean, we're kind of burying the lead here. The only reason that they're able to do it is because they control the CNNs, the MSNBCs, the NBCs, the ABCs, the CBS, and they know that they will lead every aspect of their news coverage with it. If they thought that these reporters and these editors and producers would actually take an impartial view at it and say, you know what, this is BS. Like, you should have done this back during the investigation in the hearing phase. No, we're not going to go and cover this. Then they wouldn't have done it. But they know that they run the media like they're little lapdogs.
I think this thing is evolving to a farce quickly. It'd be very interesting to see what's up tonight. We'll obviously talk about it on the show tomorrow morning.
Very, very, very quickly into a farce. Steve, we've got about a minute left. Do you want to preview anything for this coming weekend?
Well, tomorrow we've got Boris Epstein with us, and also Curtis join us. Audible, depending on what we go through tonight with the Lev Parnas. material. Sunday morning, we're going to obviously go through the deconstruction of Adam's first opening salvo. So it's going to be a jam-packed weekend as we anticipate the trial of the century and the crime of the century.
Steve, we lost you a little bit there. Something about trial of the century and crime of the century.
Yes, I think that was the globalist tapping into Steve's phone and saying, nope, you're criticizing globalists. We're not allowed to use our satellites anymore. Good luck with that, buddy.
And at some point, we're going to have to get into, maybe it's this weekend, maybe it's Monday, the Washington Post excerpt from Phil Rucker's new book, where the president goes up against the neoliberal, globalist, post-war, rules-based international order. On War Room Impeachment, we'll go through it all. This has been episode 120. Jason Miller, Raheem Kassam, Stephen K. Bannon. We'll be back at 9 a.m. tomorrow, Saturday morning, with another episode of War Room Impeachment. Do not miss it.